If you thought that your tax dollars being used to house people in hotels in the Greater Toronto area who had illegally crossed into Canada from safe spaces like upstate New York and then subsequently claimed asylum in Canada was going to be a temporary thing, you are sadly mistaken. This week I found out that one of Trudeau's senior cabinet ministers was actually on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation talking about the fact that the Trudeau federal Liberals were planning to support people, illegal border crossers in Toronto area hotels for a longer period of time, further than September the 30th. Now, of course, they couldn't say how long they were planning on doing this. They just used terms like the foreseeable future. They couldn't tell how much money was going to be involved or who was going to pay for it. And of course, they didn't talk about doing anything to stop the issue, which is being precipitated by the fact that tens of thousands of people are illegally entering the country because of a loophole in the agreement that we have with the United States, which prevents people from asylum shopping after reaching one of our countries. Now, as you know, this is like a broken record for me. For over 18 months, myself, my party leader, Andrew Scheer, we have been calling upon the Liberal government to go to the American government and try to renegotiate the Safe Third Country Agreement. They have not done this. Instead, what you've got is one of Trudeau's senior ministers out on national television telling you that it's appropriate to have no plan to house people when they get to Canada, but they're going to do that with your tax dollars that they don't have because they're running a huge deficit. They're increasing your taxes through things like a carbon tax, and they're spending it on hotels for people who are illegally entering the country from safe spaces like upstate New York. And to me, that's not compassionate, it's not fair, there is no plan here, and we should be trying, rather than doing this, we should be trying to bring order back to Canada's immigration system by doing things like closing the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. So to me, after all of this parliamentary committee study that we've done this summer that I pushed for, we now have no more information on how much the cost to Canadians is going to be, how this is going to affect people who are trying to legally enter the country in terms of resources that are being spent on people who are illegally entering the country. And we also don't have any more information on what this means in terms of long-term costs or projections. This is so irresponsible. So there's one more thing that I wanted to update you on, and that's that it's almost been a month since Justin Trudeau appointed a minister who was the former chief of police in Toronto, Bill Blair, to a ministry. I think the title was like for border security and something else. I don't know. You remember that myself and my colleague Pierre Poilievre, we brought him in front of the committee. We asked him very bluntly, what do you do? Who reports to you? And it was found out that nobody reports to him. Nearly a month after his appointment, he still doesn't have a mandate letter from the Prime Minister. That means he doesn't have a job description, and we still don't know anything that he's done. There's something called an Order in Council list on the Government of Canada's website, and it's a sort of behind the scenes thing where you can see what the government and the Prime Minister is doing in terms of ministerial appointments and different types of appointments. And to date, I've been checking that website very eagerly daily to see if Bill Blair has been given any sort of responsibility, and he hasn't, and it's been almost a month. Can you believe that? So all that Justin Trudeau is doing with regard to the illegal border crossing crisis in terms of your update this week is he sent out another minister to basically say that he was going to continue to house people indefinitely with no plan in hotels, and that the Minister of Nothing, as we're starting to call Bill Blair, still didn't have a job description. Now, I have seen some ATIPS documents that have been reported on that show that there have been concerns raised in the past year about the government using hotels to house large cohorts of asylum seekers or refugees. In terms of one ATIP document that I saw suggested that federal bureaucrats had gone as far as to go on TripAdvisor to try and deal with hotel management concerns about the use of their property in improper ways, and the fact that the government had appointed or were hiring people to sort of oversee how these operations were going in hotels. and it wasn't going so well. So I'm very concerned about this. I have read that ATIP in detail, and I think that this is something that is worthy of study by Parliament in the fall, especially given that this week the government has come out and announced basically this permanent housing program in Canada's hotels for the people who are illegally crossing the border at Roxham Road. And make no mistake, this is permanent. The government is actually setting up a center at Cornwall where they're taking people and busing them there. I'm planning at some point, I hope to go and actually visit that facility. And then they're putting them on buses and taking them to hotels in the GTA without really any other plan beyond that. This is the system that they're trying to brand as the triage system. This, of course, is a nice way of saying we are putting people who illegally cross the border onto buses and then up in hotels at a taxpayer expense. This is ridiculous. So this is something I'm now planning. You know, you often ask me, well, what are you going to do about it, Michelle? I plan to hold the government to account through either parliamentary committee study, questions in the media, and more to make sure that we're keeping the heat and the spotlight on this issue, even over the summer months when Parliament isn't sitting, because I think that it is absolutely ridiculous that the government's only plan to deal with thousands of people illegally crossing the border is to put them up in hotels. So those are two big developments this week on this file that I am looking at. We're doing a lot of research on that, reading through those ATIP documents, and of course looking at ways that we can continue to hold Justin Trudeau to account. I want to be very clear, Conservative government would seek to immediately close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement, which is creating this problem. The Conservative Party does not believe that people who have reached safe spaces such as upstate New York should be allowed to circumvent the Safe Third Country Agreement by illegally crossing the border. And we certainly wouldn't be creating long-term permanent infrastructure to essentially incentivize people to continue to cross the border. We would be looking at ways to close a loophole in the agreement and to send a strong message around the world that if you want to come to Canada, you have to do that through legal means. And we do have many legal ways for people to come to Canada, but that has to be done in a planned, orderly way so that the government can anticipate how many people are coming into Canada and to make sure that those people are meeting the needs of the Canadian economy and are being paired with jobs, that we're managing our immigration programs to integration and not to entitlement, and that we are, you know, that essentially what we were doing in the past. Canada had a very orderly immigration system under a past Conservative government, and we need to get back to that. So that's your immigration update for today, and I'll come to you early next week with some of those action items that I just mentioned that we'll be working on over the weekend. Working hard for you. Have a great day.